Hello, I'm about to go away for a week and I won't be making or uploading any videos over that week, so I thought I'd just make a few short videos today, then you've got um, that whole week to watch them without me uploading any others. But I thought I would make a little kind of mini series on the subject that I started talking about in my video called What I'll Find Most Difficult at the Convent, which was about the whole thing of like feeling that you're having to put your gifts into storage. I thought maybe I should like begin by pointing out that it's not like when you enter religious life you're going to a place where you can't use your gifts, because the whole point is that God's calling you and the gifts God's given you to that ministry. But I guess from what I understand, like it might just be that you can't use your gifts in the ways or as easily or yeah, in the ways that you were using them before entering religious life. And it might be that God's got different ways of you using them, but it's not, I don't want to kind of imply that entering religious life is about not using your gifts, because it's the opposite. Like any religious community would be wanting to look at what gifts you've got that can enhance the community and enhance that community's ministry. So I thought get that out of the way to begin with. But that there is an element that pretty much all the sisters I've talked to about it have like resonated with or found in their own experience of this transition I'm about to go through, where you are leaving lots of things that you were proficient in, and you are going into a context where, at least to begin with, that there isn't a way of using what people feel are your gifts, if that makes sense. So these little videos are more about that side of things, so kind of gifts in the context of religious life and things that I felt God saying to me about that topic, and a few things that sisters themselves have said to me about that topic. So yeah, I like this analogy of, or this image of putting your gifts into storage. It's not like you're saying goodbye to them when you go into religious life, and the whole point about putting something into storage is it can come out like very easily when it's time to be used again. And I guess all of us can think of examples of that, where we've got a particular gift and maybe we used it at that time in our life, and then there wasn't any need to use it for years and years, and then suddenly again there was a need to use it at another point in the future. And I guess like swimming or something, it's not something you've forgotten how to use, it's just it was kind of in hibernation or whatever during that time, and you brought it out again. So I mean, to give an example, I forgot yesterday when I was talking about different things that I like doing or that I've done over the years, I completely forgot the whole drama side of stuff. At school I was really involved in drama. I played like main characters in some of our drama productions at school, and then I directed one of them. But then when I went to Kenya for just under a year after leaving school, and so almost immediately God found a way of using that drama experience, because I was with kids who were especially 11 and 12, they were at the school over the weekends, and they got really bored at weekends and in evenings, like that they were boarding at this school. So I thought, well, let's set up a drama group. So I set up a drama group, and then I thought, well, let's do a drama production about like telling the gospel story to people. So I kind of wrote a script for them, and over a series of months I kind of directed and like rehearsals, and we had a whole drama production around the campus, using the river and the church and the different parts of the hill that the school was on. So I didn't have to wait long after leaving school to be able to use that drama experience. But then after that drama production, and I never did anything drama related ever since, until just a few months ago, when I just recently had that job for a few months with adults with learning disabilities, and they had a drama group with that, and I happened to be the member of staff that was helping with it. And so in that context, like suddenly after all like 13 years of not doing like one tiny bit of drama, I was suddenly able to help write a script and direct the rehearsals and act in it. So that I'm sure like all of you have got examples of yeah, but where God's given you something and he maybe hasn't used it for years and years, and then suddenly does use it again. So that's that's just kind of part of the way that gifts works. It's reassuring to just to be aware of that, I guess. But I was talking with the sisters at this community about this whole feeling like I was having to put gifts into storage. That all the sisters I spoke to kind of empathized with that they said that they felt that that was the right kind of phrase, and they said that they had been through the same thing themselves. And they also pointed out, or one sister I was speaking to pointed out that actually Jesus can empathize himself as well. And I'm sure she won't mind me sharing because it would probably help other people, that when she was praying about this and saying, well, that I was a good teacher and now you're asking me to leave that profession and enter religious life, she felt Jesus say back to her while she was praying, I was a good carpenter. And so even Jesus himself had to leave a profession that he was good at to follow what his father next wanted him to do. So I found it helpful just knowing that all the sisters can empathise with kind of what I'm going through at the moment, and even Jesus himself. And I was thinking about this whole putting gifts into storage, and actually, like I've tried to explain, I kind of went quite extreme from training for public ordained ministry to suddenly kind of being like nothing in a kind of formal church way, and to have to suddenly be like just an ordinary member of a community on a very like in manual labour and a low wage and all of this, and then becoming a cleaner. So I've been doing that for the last few years, but actually in all of those years of kind of silence almost, in terms of not being able to do all the things I used to do in my previous life, I realised that actually that itself was a gift, as in me having had to put a lot of parts of myself into storage in God's hands. That itself, that period of living like that, in a more quiet way, or in a way where I just couldn't use lots of parts of myself, that actually was a gift, because in that God has been doing something in me. I don't know if I can articulate what it is, but that itself has brought about a change in my thinking about things. I think over time it helped get me to a point where I didn't mind if I never preached again, where I didn't mind if no one ever saw me. And it was during that period that I definitely really benefited or grew from reading both Carmelite spirituality, which has a lot about hiddenness in it, and also the spirituality of Charles de Foucault and the Little Brothers and Sisters of Jesus, who also reflect a lot on Jesus' own hiddenness and obscurity in when he lived as a carpenter in Nazareth, but also like all the wider things related to that, like how Jesus still is happy to be hidden in communion bread, and just as much that although Jesus was engaged in public ministry, he was also very willing to be hidden at times too. It all depends on what his father was asking of him. So yeah, I realised that actually having lots of parts of you not being used, that actually can be a spiritual gift in itself. Also, if you're going through, if God's kind of giving you a number of years or a period of time where you can't use a certain gift, that itself can also be a time when that gift itself is maturing. A bit like if you've got money in the bank and it's growing interest, or I don't know what matures, wine and cheese and things. I was told a story by a sister about
a sister who used to be, I think, an artist and an art teacher, and when she entered religious life, apparently she wasn't even allowed to hold a paintbrush for something like 20 years, because it just wasn't part of what the community was doing at that time. And like all these years down the line, she was suddenly able to do art again. And apparently, because she'd had that long gap of not being able to use her gift, but that gift had been maturing inside her while it wasn't being used, then when she came to do art again, it was in a kind of more mature and transformed way, and she became an iconographer, like someone who paints or writes icons, like kind of icons that you see on church walls. And now she does a lot in that area. She's now kind of going back to kind of teaching this art to other people and being an artist. But there was that long gap in between. But that assured me that even if you're not using a gift for a number of years, that God's maybe maturing that gift and got a plan for how it will be used further down the line in a different, transformed way. And linked to that, a couple of sisters have told me, there's that passage of when the disciples say to Jesus that we've given up all of this for you, and then Jesus says anyone who's given up like family and fields and houses for my sake, it will be given back to them 100-fold. And they were talking about that with gifts, that when you enter religious life, you put your gifts into God's hands in storage, but you find that over time you are given them back, but in a kind of transformed way, and in some sense you're given them back 100-fold in the way that God transforms them and uses them in a different way, or a way that can be even more beneficial to people. So I found that really helpful. And another sister that I was talking to said that, just to balance that out, she said that yes, she had to give up things that she was good at when she entered religious life, but she said that she definitely feels that God has given some of those gifts back in finding her opportunities to use those gifts. But she said it just might not be as frequently as you would like, or in the ways you would have preferred to have used them, but that God does find ways of using your gifts that you have given up and put into his hands when you entered religious life.
While I was living at the convent for a bit alongside her, I was praying about the fact that quite a few people have said to me, are you sure religious life is right for you, because you're good at these different things and we can't see how they could be used in a religious life context. And I think maybe partly that was because these were people who are unaware of all the different kinds of things that people in religious life do. But I was praying about this, and basically the answer I got, or felt I got from God when I was praying, was that he reminded me of the passage that says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't lean on your own understanding, that passage in Proverbs. And I thought, yeah, there's no point me kind of worrying about these things or trying to limit, have I got a vocation in this, to whether I can see certain gifts being used, because that's really not the right approach to discernment and to looking at religious life. And the other thing I felt God pointing out to me while I was there is that although it feels like you're giving up so many things, spiritually speaking, I was reminded of the 23rd Psalm and how actually you're not, if God's your shepherd, you're not actually ever going to be lacking anything. And there's a difference between not having something and actually lacking, if that makes sense. So that was the other thing that I found really helpful, that I felt God say to me.